This is the story of how my grandmother fell in love and married the American soldier who liberated her. Gerda Weissman was born in Bielsko, Poland in 1924. She was 15 years old when the Nazis occupied her town. After being separated from her brother and later her parents, she survived 3 years in slave labor and concentration camps. My grandfather, Kurt Klein, was born in Waldorf, Germany in 1920. In 1937, he escaped Nazi Germany for the United States. He returned to Europe with the U.S. Army later in the war. Then, in January 1945, she began what would become a 3-month, 350-mile death march through Germany and Czechoslovakia. On May 6, 1945, my grandmother, along with the 120 remaining girls of the more than 2,000 who began the death march, arrived in Volery, Czechoslovakia. The SS guards locked the 120 girls in an abandoned factory and set a time bomb on it. That night, there was torrential rain. The bomb did not connect and go off. She was free. She stood at the door of the factory and saw a car coming down the road. But instead of the swastika on the hood of the car, what she saw was the white star of the U.S. Army. A man jumped out. She said to him, "We are Jewish, you know." And he replied, "So am I." He returned to the field hospital a few days later and introduced himself to her as Lieutenant Kurt Klein. He became known throughout the field hospital as Gerda's lieutenant. In September 1945, my grandfather received orders to return to the United States. Before he left, he proposed to my grandmother. Unfortunately, at the time, it was not possible for her to go with him. In those 9 months, they wrote letters back and forth to each other. They talked about their families, their pasts, their dreams for the future. They were reunited and married in Paris on June 18, 1946. They had with them photos of each of their parents in order to honor them since they had not survived. They took a photo on their wedding day, and just like he had done while my grandmother was in the hospital, on the back of the photo he took, he wrote, "The next 75 years will be easier." After they were married, they returned to Buffalo, New York. There, my grandfather worked in a printing press while my grandmother began to learn English and acclimate to the United States. They would have 3 children, 8 grandchildren, and so far, they have 19 great-grandchildren. They were married for over 55 years. They dedicated their lives to sharing their stories in the hopes that never again would others experience what they had.